Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Career Tip Tuesday. I am your host, Sherry Sims, founder of Black Career Women's Network, and I am so excited to be here this afternoon. I know that we had to cancel 2 weeks ago, but I was actually facilitating a group coaching class for women, so that's why, and I couldn't get out in time because it was asking me a ton of questions after it was over, but I'm so glad to be here now. So you know the drill. Please let me know when you come in to watch, let us know where you are watching from. We would love to know where you're watching from. And I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I want you to ask me some questions too before we leave for the end of today's episode. All right, so I'm going to get right into it, what we're going to be talking about today. And drum roll, please. We're going to be talking about executive presence secrets, okay? Secrets to executive presence. And let's talk about this because I think some of us know what executive presence is and some of us do not. And so I want to make sure that we have a really open conversation to talk about executive presence and making sure that we are maybe assessing how we're showing up and what it really is. I think when we think about executive presence, we always think about how we look, and that's not it's part of that, but it's also other components to it as well. And so I'm gonna give 6 secrets to that today, and then end it out with a power move tip. So we're gonna jump right in to the first one, which is silence is your superpower. And when we think about silence being your superpower, I want you to think about this for a moment because I know you all have heard me say something specifically around, silence in the workplace can be harmful, but it depends on the situation. But when it comes to executive presence, silence can be your superpower. And here's what I'm talking about. When you finish speaking, we'll use this as an example. When you finish speaking, pause, okay? Let your words land with the people that are listening to you and make it a simple practice, because when you make it a practice, it makes you more thoughtful, you become more confident, and gives you time to gather your own thoughts when you are put a pause in between instead of feeling like you're rambling. And I always say, when you think about silence when you're communicating in specific ways, it does signal strength. It means that you are considerate of others in the room because you're not rambling. You are giving opportunity for others to process how they feel from the information you just shared. So silence can be a superpower if you feel comfortable enough to understand how to use pauses in your communication, and use them in a way to help others to process what you just shared. So it helps them to feel comfortable to give their own feedback as to what you just shared. So I think that's important to understand as well. All right. Number 2 is your appearance speaks before you do. And I think sometimes this can be one that's up for debate. Okay. Fair or not, appearance does influence how your perception of how people see you. So, you always hear people say dress for the role that you want, not the one that you have, right? When you hear people say that, and that's true. But you have to understand your company culture and dress strategically based on your company culture. And I don't mean change who you are, change your whole style and aesthetic to fit in, but to stand out with intention. And so when you stand out with intention, it shifts how you're perceived, but also how you perceive yourself. So, when I say when you look good, you feel good, I always give my clients advice. I always say, create a signature style. If you create a signature style, not only are you expressing who you are within that style, but you're also going to make sure that people are going to expect that style from you, right? Or they're like, oh my gosh, they can say that Tanya's so creative. She always wears like a flower on her lapel when she comes to work, or she's always wearing, a great blouse with different bright colors. So it's about you just being able to be comfortable with who you are, creating a signature style. But what do you want your physical appearance to convey about you when people see you? That is powerful for you to own that. One of the things that I used to do when I used to work in corporate, I know a lot of companies and places are always, they have what I call the business casual work environment. But for me, I always felt more powerful when I wore a blazer. And I know sometimes that wearing a blazer every day can be a little bit kind of overpowering for some people. It's not that you are dressing to make others comfortable. You're dressing to also help to make you feel powerful, but also making sure you're conveying the right message. So what I adopted was a very simplistic signature style for myself. So I would wear a blazer and a cami and wear jeans. And I would either wear my tennis shoes or flats. So what that did for me was help me to feel professional and comfortable at the same time. And then also casual at the same time, because my jeans made it casual, my tennis shoes made it casual, or, my flats. And so you have to find something that works for you and make it a signature style and make it comfortable. All right. So again, this goes back to how you want to be perceived and how you feel about how you want to be perceived, and you control that. It can be powerful if you decide to adopt that. Some of you may say, you know what, I really don't have a signature style. Well, I challenge you to create one or to adopt one. All right. The next, number 3, is own your opinions without apology. Now, this one may make some people feel uncomfortable. Hi, Janae. Janae said, yes, I was told to dress for the job you want, not to dress for the job you have. Absolutely. Now, for the next one, which is own your opinions without apology. This one here, I want to spend a little bit more time on it too, because when you think about owning your opinions without apology, there's a couple of things that comes along with this. Some people will say that you should probably speak with authority and conviction, but we all know when it comes to Black women and how we how we communicate, how it's perceived, and we are sometimes more mindful of that. But here's the thing. When you are speaking, you don't have to soften your statements with a I think or maybe or just a quick question. You speak with authority. You speak with expertise because you are the subject matter expert. You have the facts, right? So what you do is something like, here's what I observed, instead of probably wrong, right? Your opinions are valuable. You have to believe they are. And the way that you speak up, or the way that you share your opinions, also shows how confident you are and how you're showing your authority. So don't be passive when it comes to how you share your opinions, which means that if you're in a meeting, you're going to raise your hand, or can I have permission to speak? No, we're not doing that. No, we read the room, we see how it's flowing, and we share, and you speak with authority. What I observed, or in my experience, or what I have seen, right? Or in the, whatever you feel is going to be, it definitely needs to be authoritative and not in a way that is passive. Own it without apology. Your job is not to make others feel good. If they are uncomfortable with who you are and how you're showing up, and you're showing up, showing respect to others, and that you are being mindful of how you treat people. And if they have a problem with how you're showing up, that's not your damn problem. Okay, that means they got a problem. They need to go work on that. And that's a conversation for another conversation for another Career Tip Tuesday. We talk about how that would go. But again, owning your opinions without apology. You are the subject matter expert. You're the one who does this job. You know the stats. You know the facts. All those things. So own it. And making sure when you're showing up in specific meetings that you are discussing these things unapologetically, because and doing it with authority. And here's the thing. Some people are scared of the word authority because they think authority means pushing around and that type of thing. And that's not what I'm talking about. Authority is showing confidence in owning what you do. And not backing down from that, right? Which means that if someone has a problem with how you are sharing the information, doing the work, whatever that is, you can definitely open up the conversation to say, explain to me why you feel the way you do about the work that I do or how I'm doing it, and give them an opportunity to explain. If they can't, that means they were just bullshitting anyway. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to put it on the table if it's confronted, and make sure that they're running it down in the right way. So owning your opinions with apology is important, which means that when you start to share your opinions, You don't make others make you feel as if what you're saying is not insightful or what you're saying is not valuable. Because at the end of the day, you have to pay attention to workplace behaviors and see if they're trying to marginalize you for their own agenda. And so being mindful of those things are important, because you're not going to be able to own your opinions without apology if you don't understand the nature of the people that you are communicating with in the circles that you're in, and what their agendas are in where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So that's another layer to this, right? Because you don't want to internalize it and start to have self-doubt because you're sharing your opinions and others are having something to say about it. So I may have kind of got on my soapbox a little bit with that, but it's the truth. So again, at the end of the day, is, share your opinions without apology. And when you share them, if it's questioned, you don't back down. You say, this is why I feel this way. And just own it. All right, number 4 is a strategic eye. Why do I have an A? I don't know why I put that there, y'all. Strategic eye contact builds authority. Just got through talking about this, right? Nicole says, I associate authority with leadership. Absolutely, Nicole. But guess what? You can still be an individual contributor and have authority in what you do at your level, right? Authority is something that necessarily, does leaders need to have it? Absolutely. But you can have that as an individual. And here's the thing. You asserting authority as an individual in a way at your level. Also, if leadership sees that, they will be able to see some sort of type of executive presence about you. This is a secret, okay? So I recommend people, even if you're not in a leadership role and you know that, but you probably already are a leader without the title, you're probably already exerting authority and don't even know it. So again, thinking about authority and how you use that within just your own role, whether you're in leadership or not, is important. But strategic eye contact does build authority. And let me explain what I'm talking about. When you think about eye contact, it can be a power move for some people. When you're speaking in meetings, when you're maintaining eye contact with the person you're talking to, or if you are sharing an opinion or thought and you're looking around the room. We're not talking about robotically like this. We're talking about you holding your composure and talking, but you are making eye contact with certain individuals. And you want that, you kind of want that connection to what the decision makers too, or whoever's working with you to create the influence to help you to gain the outcomes and things you're looking for what you're doing. What eye contact does is signals credibility and confidence in what you're saying and what you're doing. You don't want to look down. You don't want to kind of like look over here. And one thing I always look for when I'm talking to individuals, especially when leadership, when we're in crucial conversations and I'm asking questions for critical information, if you look down when I ask you a question or you look away when you answer me, that lets me know a couple of things. So you have to understand eye contact and body language when you're having these. But strategic eye contact is critical because it does help you to look at a couple of certain things. And when you're looking at someone, don't gaze away. You keep looking at them as you're talking to them, and when you're speaking and sharing your thoughts and opinions, or if you're giving an update on something or whatever it is within either the communication in a meeting or individuals, whatever that looks like. But strategic eye contact does build authority, because when you're able to look at individuals in the face when you're talking to them, especially in their eyes, it says a lot about who you are and what are your convictions and your values and how you stand up and how you show up. So that is critical. So if you're someone who is, a little more shy in that area, try it, and try it with someone that you're trying to really get your message across to when you're in the meeting, or if you are in having a one-on-one conversation with them. Just look them in the eye. Eye contact. Yes, Jashina, eye contact is critical. Absolutely critical. So think about that. All right, number 5 is take up physical space intentionally. Okay. Hi, Nicole. Nicole says, I'm a CEO, but I appreciate when others exclude leadership qualities. Own your thoughts and opinions, ladies. Absolutely, Nicole. Own your thoughts and opinions. Don't back down from that. You do it with authority. Like I said, if anybody has a problem with who you are and how you're showing up, and you are in a space, again, I'm gonna go back to this because I know we talked about it already. When you are in a space and you know that you're in a space where you are showing respect to others and that you are being mindful, in how you speak and how you share things. If people have a problem with that, it's not your problem, it's theirs. So again, if it becomes a problem, people have something to say about it, and it needs to be addressed, then you ask the questions for them to give examples. And more than likely, they're not going to be able to, because it's so much bullshit. But we're going to move on from that for right now. Thank you, Nicole. I love your point. And Gail, yes, eye contact solidifies credibility and character. Absolutely. All right. So the next executive presence secret that we're going to share is the okay, y'all. Cough up to old age. Okay. Forget I already had it up on the screen, y'all. Okay. Take up physical space intentionally. All right. And this is important because when you think about taking up space, right? When you take up space, it matters. When you are in the room, I'll give you one of my own executive presence secrets I used to use. When I used to go into meetings, whether they were in person or virtual. Now, I had a virtual thing going, but I'll tell you what I used to do in person, and I'll tell you what I used to do on, virtually. In person, when I am in a, in-person meeting, I always make sure I sit up straight. And I'm not like sit up straight where I'm just so like, what is going on with her? She's just so stoic, right? No, just making sure that my posture is in a way where people see that I am paying attention and that I am listening. I don't shrink to make others comfortable, okay? Because we don't need to do that as women, especially Black women. We know that we're conditioned to take up less space. We're going to resist that, okay? All of us ladies who are watching, we're going to resist that, okay? We're going to command the room with our physical presence, okay? Which means when we come in the room, you know how your mom used to come in the room, you're like, oh gosh, here she come. It's not that we want to be intimidating, but we have to kind of command our respect in a different way. So, okay, back to what I was sharing about my secrets. So again, I would come into the room, sit up straight. I would, make sure that my posture was showing that I was attention, that I was focused. One of the things I would do in person, but I also used to do it a lot virtually when we were on Zooms and things like that, was I would always make sure I kind of had, this is my poker face, okay? This is my personal poker face. My personal poker face was to always smile. And it necessarily wasn't like it's all teeth showing. It was more or less having a facial expression that showed that I'm paying attention, but I'm warm and I'm also approachable, right? So I would just kind of like, when someone is like talking, I would be like, and not necessarily in a fake way. It's just more of, to show that. And so that way I always used to keep that face. And when I kept that face, even if someone said there's something that I thought was bullcrap, or if I, really can't stand somebody that's in the meeting, I'm like, oh, I can't stand her, or I know that this person did something that was, really horrible or unethical, or probably even just showed them more out their dishonesty, I would still be like, they wouldn't even know. I'm like, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, you little piece of crap. Just last week you stole her ID and it was in the, you know what I mean? So I would use that. Now, when I would, be present during virtual meetings, two things. I would always have my camera on, and there were always people who didn't have the camera on, and some did. I would always keep my camera on. I would always make sure that I'm looking presentable from, here up consistently. And then I always made sure that I had that same smile face on, whether I didn't like it or not. There were a couple of times where something took me off guard and that changed, and I was asked about it, and I was straight up about it. I said I didn't like what was said. So it caught me off guard, and that's what you saw in the moment. And when you own that, it's like, what are they going to say? Right? So again, you have to own those times when and take up that physical space intentionally. You want them to be able to see you, right? And this is layered when it comes to physical space and taking up physical space intentionally. This goes back to visibility also, right? Having visibility. So if you're someone who is looking to increase your visibility, do you have access, to the right people that can help with that? Being part of projects, volunteering for a company, community activities, that gives you access to people, to gives you more visibility. But when you're in those spaces, you still take up physical space while you're in them, and you still exude your executive presence, whatever that looks like for you. So again, this is just kind of thinking back to that. Who's taking up space? right now? Who's taking up physical space intentionally where they are? And are you being strategic about it? And I have my Nicole Oliver, the CEO. If you got some thoughts around that, please share. How are people taking up physical space where you are with your teams and people that report to some of your leaders? So again, I think this is important to think about taking up the physical space intentionally, what that looks like for you, and how that can be a superpower that you can use when it comes to that. And then we got to think about this because as Black women, there's always perceptions, there's always bias, there's always microaggressions, there's always these stereotypes that are placed upon us. So we're not talking about changing who we are, but again, we do have the power to own how we are perceived. So what you do is decide how you want to show up and own that and make sure others see it and respect it. And you have the tools you need to advocate if you need to. Elaine says, I've always paid attention at how I enter and exit the room so that my presence is felt and my scents make me stand out. Okay, so you're talking about the perfume, right? I guess in terms of, it's like Elaine always smells so good when she comes into the room. I get that. All right, Gail says, intentional, powerful, nonverbal behavior allows you to be heard without being loud. Absolutely, Gail. This is what we're talking about, right? We're not talking about you always have to be vocal. Sometimes your physical presence is what you need to be the strength, right? And if you know how to use that, that can speak volumes, right? That alludes to power in a whole nother level. Have a LinkedIn user. I can't see your name on here, but it probably is on LinkedIn. Yes, trying to take up more space by attending in the industry events, networking, and being seen. Absolutely. And when you do that, make sure you're creating some sort of goal. What is the end game for you when you do this, right? Because that's really what you want as the end game, so you can make sure that you are learning and growing from this, but it's also that it's going to go somewhere for you as well. And then we have a link on building your brand. Absolutely. All this goes back to that. But when we think about executive presence is something that we often don't necessarily think about automatically, and we should. I am in rooms when I'm doing like leadership development training, working with women to create executive coaching programs and things like that. When we always hear about when I talk about who we want to be a speaker to come in and talk to the group, or, who are we looking to be to do this? And they always talk about, oh, well, this person, because they actually, exude executive presence. And I do agree that is how some people are drawn to you individually when they see you in a certain way. And again, that's why I say you control how you're perceived. Now, what doesn't match up sometimes is how, and I'm going to say it because it has to be said. Sometimes individuals have the executive presence, but then when you work with them and engage with them and things like that, there's other certain characteristics about them that are horrible. So they may have the executive presence from a physical standpoint, but they lack character and some other things that actually creates an entire package when it comes to executive presence. So just wanted to share that too. So because there's something, there's a certain type of bias called confirmation bias, to where we could see someone in a certain way, and then we just assume that across the board they're like fantastic across the board, where they may appear one way but actually be something else under the surface, and that's called confirmation bias. So you have to make sure you don't get caught up in that. So when you see someone who exudes executive presence from a physical standpoint, you want to make sure that you are doing your work to dig a little deeper on another level, just to ensure that they really are the real deal. So I think that's important to know. All right. LinkedIn user says, I absolutely took up space as well as was intentional with my brand in previous positions. I'm now looking for an opportunity after a layoff in October, and I look forward to doing the same. Absolutely. Always keep that in mind and be very mindful and stay on top of that. And once you land that new role, I always say that first 90 days, there's a list of things that needs to be taken a look at within the culture, within leadership, within how you want to show up, even within your frontline team that you work with. There's some different things that needs to be looked at. Nicole says, I design software, so I stand out anyway because I'm a Black woman in tech, but I don't run from it. Absolutely. And you should not, right? And you have a, taking up space in that tech space is important for you to show up as your authentic self, and own it and have the skills when it comes to advocacy, and communicating, navigating those spaces, knowing what to say, the language, all those things are critical, for that. So no, thank you for sharing that, Nicole. I really do appreciate you doing that. Okay, the last one, number 6, the last executive secret is lead from conviction, not consensus. And so we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but let's elaborate on it a little bit further. And so when it comes to leading from conviction and not consensus, I am one of those types of leaders to where I don't ask for permission for opinions. If I am someone who's a big picture thinker, so if I see something that needs to be resolved, I'm looking at what resources and what can we do to resolve that. And then, depending on who I need to be involved in that process, I would bring them in for a collaborative effort of how we're going to get it done. Or this is what I'm thinking about how it needs to be done. This is how I want it done. What's your thoughts? Can we add anything to how this needs to be done? So again, a lot of times, you always, when you hear them say, I had to make an executive decision. Absolutely. But again, depending on the type of leader you are, we're not talking about you being toxic in terms of leadership. You want to make sure that you are stating your position clearly and inviting dialogue about what you want to get done. And authority is just saying, hey, I made this decision, or here's what I want to do. And you want to get the thoughts. You want to be able to have the trust, because people who trust the leaders they work with, and then, you make it safe for them to share the thoughts and opinions, they're going to perform for you higher anyway. So again, it's just about you being able to not wait for permission. Here's what we're going to do. What's your thoughts and opinions about it? And then who's going to do what, so we can move forward with the plan. All right. Don't wait for consensus. Don't wait for permission. Lead with what you know. Lead with what you know. Because at the end of the day, if you are always waiting for consensus on everything, a lot of times you could be showing, senior leadership or whatever next level of leadership you desire to go to. They may look at you and say, she's always trying to ask for opinions and approval before she makes decisions on something. So they're just going with it, right? And then making sure she's got people who can help to make her decision, her vision come to life. So again, you've got to be very mindful of that. When I'm coaching my leaders, I have one specifically who was like that. I said, you have to stop going to your leadership to solve challenges that you have the resources to resolve on your own. You're not using them. And they're going to look at you and say, well, God, can we even trust her at a higher level to make decisions, when she keeps coming to us for guidance for how to make the decisions at the level she's at. So you have to think about that as well. And that's critical. You've got to be able to make those decisions. I have a LinkedIn user says, do you recommend that we set up our own websites to help control the narrative? I have the feeling the answer is yes. You mean websites? Kind of give me a little bit more context of what you're saying, because if you're talking about from a personal brand, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that. But to help control the narrative internally, I mean, if you're being sarcastic, no, right? I mean, this is about you showing up and having strong communication skills, strong advocacy skills, and being able to show up and control the perception of how you're being perceived and address any stereotypes, biases, or anything that you may experience. And here's the thing, you never know when it's going to happen, right? I always say that you can have great relationships with individuals who do not look like you at work, but it still doesn't mean that they still don't have that in the back of their mind. So you still just have, you do have to be very specific on that. But as far as setting up your own website to help control the narrative, you need to explain what you're trying to say, because I'm not quite sure if I'm getting that. Okay. So please elaborate if you want to, and we can have some more dialogue about it. Or as we used to say when I was working at HR, it's okay for us to have some healthy rumblings about it. All right. So I'm going to go back and show all 6 secrets. And then I'll share my power move tip for the day. First one is silence is your superpower. Secret number 2, your appearance speaks before you do. Secret number 3, own your opinions without apology. Secret number 4, strategic eye contact builds authority. Secret number 5, take up physical space intentionally. And secret number 6 is lead from conviction and not consensus. And here's a power move tip I'm going to leave you with. You don't need anyone's approval to show up as a leader. Your executive presence isn't something you earn, it's something you claim. So what I'm going to challenge you to do this week is to pick one thing or one secret from the 6 that we had today. I want you to own it and then watch how people respond to it. Challenge you to do that. Watch how people respond to it. And I think it's a great activity to do. Now, we do have a work guide called the 6 Power Moves Every Black Woman Should Know. You can use this link to access it for free. So please download it. It's a great guide to go by. And again, it's the 6 Power Moves Every Black Woman Should Know. You should be using these power moves in the workplace as a Black female. And then also, too, we'd love for you to go to our website, bcwnetwork.com, learn more about what we do for those of you who are new and don't know who we are. Or I even invite you to download our mobile app. We have an amazing mobile app with the community. We have some resources, and that's where all of our videos is where you can find a copy. The replay of this Career Tip Tuesday. But download our mobile app. I don't know if you can see it over here. Download our mobile app and get connected with us. There it is. We work hard to build this for you all. So get connected with us. We would love to have you in our community. You can download it and connect for free. Oh, great. She says, challenge is accepted. Thank you. Yes. Take this. Take one of those 6 and I challenge you to do it and watch and see how people respond to you. All right. I hope this was helpful for today for you all. In terms of the executive presence secrets, specifically for Black women, because it's always important for us to look at this and know what we need. All right, we're going to go ahead and close it out for this week, but we will see you all in 2 weeks. Have an amazing rest of your work week. And when we come back, I guess it'll be the last day of March, and we'll already be in spring. So hopefully we'll have some spring weather. Talk to you soon. Bye.